Schizophrenia, or splitting of the mind, is one of the most mysterious illnesses known to humanity. It can develop slowly, gradually destroying personality, or on the contrary, present itself suddenly. Such an acute onset of the disease is called Schub, from the German word for shift. A patient in this condition is capable of the most reckless and pointless actions.
A person suddenly becomes completely unrecognizable. He stops being himself. What does it mean to be yourself? To be the one I knew yesterday? The one I saw yesterday? His voice changes. He might get delusional ideas. His behavior changes too.
One of the symptoms of schizophrenia is obsessive voices that sound in the head of the patient. On the outside, it seems like the sick person is struggling to hear something or arguing with someone. The patient is hearing them like a radio. They kind of enter his head through his ears. And a patient very often would cover his ears, trying not to listen to them, try not to answer them. Because in the majority of cases, these voices argue with each other. Or they might insult or offend the patient. They might also praise the patient, tell him that he is the best. Like any other disease, schizophrenia develops in several stages. The first one is all about mood swings, from euphoria to complete despair. The most conspicuous stage is the second one, that presents itself with obsessions and delusions. A person starts having hallucinations that can be visual, audio, or olfactory. What is happening in the patient's brain at this moment? Scientists try to answer this question with the help of magnetic resonance imaging. The patient is complaining about voices coming from outside, but the laboratory is completely silent. As soon as the subject hears a voice, he presses a special button, and the image on the screen does in fact show increased activity in those areas of the brain that are responsible for hearing. But there were no sounds in reality. It all seems to be an auditory illusion. How is this possible? The underlying reason is a malfunctioning mechanism connecting two regions of the brain: the lateral prefrontal cortex and the so-called insula located under the temporal lobe. Prefrontal cortex is responsible for processing information coming from the outside world. Insula for our imagination. Under normal conditions, insula stimulates cortex, and cortex in its turn inhibits the activity of insula. That's why we easily come back to reality from daydreaming. But if the switch doesn't work properly, imaginary objects might seem completely real. A patient doesn't believe that his visions are only a product of his sick imagination. Failing to find understanding from his loved ones, he starts keeping to himself. This is the third stage of the illness. Its symptoms are fading emotions and lack of interest in almost anyone and anything. Work, family, friends, entertainment. A person seems to be cut out from the outside world. In Greek, schizon means to split, and phren means mind. So a patient is living a double life. His inner life is much more rich than the life around him. And the surrounding reality is of very little interest to him. We call these syndromes negative because a patient stops reacting to the outer world and becomes emotionally cold. Schizophrenia can be recognized with the help of 3A rule. It incorporates the major manifestations of the disease: emotional detachment, apathy; lack of willpower, abulia. When a patient becomes incapable of making decisions and performing any actions except for routines. And finally, thought disorder, ataxia. That makes the reasoning broken and incoherent. A number of different methods were tried to treat schizophrenia, like putting agitated patients that experience hallucinations in a bathtub full of ice water to literally calm them down. Then there was an era of electroconvulsive therapy, triggering convulsions in the body of a patient with the aim of rejuvenation. The brain goes through biochemical rejuvenation, and the patient feels better. But today, therapy is mostly done with medications. To find a cure for schizophrenia, first we have to know the cause of the illness. There is still no hard evidence as to what exactly causes the problems in the patient's mind. One of the leading theories suggests that it all boils down to our genome. Today, science knows 22 genes that might provoke the development of different forms of schizophrenia.
It's a whole cascade of complicated chemical processes. We're talking about genetic abnormality here. We do in fact see genetically determined factors that cause the development of schizophrenia.
Statistics show that 1 in 100 people has schizophrenia. But genetic predisposition to the disease occurs much more often. Schizophrenia might manifest itself at any age. But what is the trigger that leads to this pathological condition? Researchers have shown that the probability of getting sick grows with higher intelligence and more sensitive nervous system. Seems counterintuitive, but unusual way of thinking and schizophrenia are encoded in the same genes. It's well known that many talented people were obsessive. But does it mean that obsession is always a sign of pathological condition? Medical experts have been arguing about a relationship between ingenuity and insanity for a long time. And stories of great people only stir up the interest in this subject. It's a weird, unusual person. He has some hobbies, some interests. Most often he's reserved, unsocial, lives in his inner life. But usually, these people specialize in something and achieve impressive results. They achieve great success in certain specific areas. That's why, very often, they are called geniuses. Albert Einstein was one of the greatest minds of the 20th century. He was nicknamed Mad Genius. The restless scientist could work in any place at any time. He could stop in the middle of the street, blind to people in cars, just to make a few notes. Einstein was so absorbed in the scientific research that sometimes he'd stop eating and even sleeping for weeks on end.
It's when a person refuses everything, stops eating, sometimes even drinking. He stops talking to people, maybe goes away somewhere. He's devoted to something and incredibly passionate about it. So what do we see from the outside? No communication with the world. A person isn't ready for any communication. He escapes into his own process. It seems to us that there's no inner discourse there either. Like there's some power much bigger than anything we have, a power that's absorbed everything. And in this case, we say that a person has succumbed to his talent. He cannot do otherwise.
Pablo Picasso is another genius from the 20th century. He used to buy some house, preferably far away from all the bustle, move into it, and start painting day and night. When the whole space would get filled with canvases, he would lock it and buy a new house. In his lifetime, he created more than 80,000 paintings, 3 artworks a day.